forced to give up licensed child care. We've been looking at therapeutic. We're really looking at getting more partnerships. Now, why is this happening? Everybody should understand that prior to the fiscal year 2007, the Department of Recreation and Parks derived its revenue from two sources. That was property tax and self-generation revenues. We never had to pay for anything. We didn't pay for utilities. We didn't pay for fleet maintenance. We didn't pay for vacation time. We didn't pay for sick time. Anything external to direct costs of providing services we paid for from those revenue streams. On April 20th, 2010, the mayor's budget was forced to make some drastic cuts throughout the entire city. This department was tasked to absorb $38 million in costs that were previously borne by the city. Most of that money was in utilities. We were forced to scramble desperately to continue to provide the levels of service. I made a commitment to this commission and the mayor and the city that we would continue to provide services throughout the summer. We had no choice. The budget came April 20th, was adopted in June. We were already in the middle of our summer period. We knew at that time that we were going to have to look at how we recover costs and fees. In fact, the mayor came out with his policy is that's full cost recovery. We know that Recreation and Parks is a subsidy-based organization. One of the issues that came up was community gardens. And we looked at community gardens as a critical infrastructure of the department, but we needed to find ways to increase our revenue source to fund it. The only choices we have going forward, if we have to absorb further cuts without revenue streams or some help, are going to be layoffs. This past year, we laid off over almost 80 people. We tried it through early retirement, almost 350 people. Normal attrition is another 40 or 50 employees a year. We've gone down from 2,100 full-time employees down to about 1,500. Unfortunately, when we look at our things like community gardens, we have direct costs now. Direct costs include utility costs. Direct costs include our material costs. Direct costs include our labor costs. We have to find a fair and reasonable mechanism to do some cost sharing. The city has multiple community gardens throughout that we manage. There is no one size fits all. We have some community gardens that are fully run by nonprofits. They pay all the fees, all the utility costs. We have some where we pay all the costs. So what we did in November, we looked at we started posting fee increases. We came to this commission. The commission adopted it. And now the chickens have come home to roost. These costs that we have been passed on to this department late in the budget period now have got to be shared by all of us who value this department and want to use its facilities. So we're aware of it. I understand the concerns. We are trying desperately to find ways to minimize it. We look to any advice and any agreements that we can go forward. So all I can say is that looking at next year's budget process and looking at next year's budget deficit, this department will be forced to take additional cuts. Those cuts will result in two things. Reduced services, much like you're seeing now that we don't do much recreation programs on Sundays. We have closed swimming pools on Mondays. We will be forced to take additional cuts as we go forward. We're looking and hoping that the community can help us understand the desperate need we have and support us as we go forward in our endeavors, both on finding partners and other revenue sources. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from my colleagues, and then I'll have a couple of comments I'd like to make. Thanks for your report, Mr. Muckery. Appreciated all the things that have been achieved. I want to focus some comments on the community garden issue you raised, because I'd like to make a request of you that would also fit in with the future agenda item, which is the next item on our agenda today. We have been receiving letters and so on concerning community garden cost increases, which were duly passed along with many, many other fee increases, I think in July. The public concern is always a concern to us. We take very seriously people's concerns. They've been articulate and in speaking, and we take them seriously, as do you, I know. I personally am a passionate gardener. I like gardens, and I like gardeners, or at least most of them. And I've always been very pleased by the fact that we have within our system some 1,700 community garden plots. I think that's a tremendous thing, and I recognize also the long waiting list to have them, that the public values this facility that we have. And I know that we're also looking as capital money, which is separate from our operating budget, allows to actually increase the number of community gardens across the whole city. So this is a very important thing. It seems to me that in view of the public concern that's been expressed, that we, in order to have a reasonable consideration of it across the commission, not just the three of us, but the five of us, we're going to need more information than we have. Certainly, all the information you provided is, in your comment, is appreciated, and it is well in the front of our minds. Every time we come here for the last 3 or 4 years, each month, and every 2 weeks actually, we've had to deal with the tremendous budget crisis we're in. I understand that the city's looking after year, it's been $300 million, $400 million. This coming year, the going in estimate is a $319 million shortfall to be made up somewhere. This is not easy. And I know that there's national polling where by big margins, the public indicates that it understands the national deficit crisis and wants the deficit eliminated, and by same large majorities wants to have no taxes, and by the same large majority wants to have no program affecting them cut. Obviously, I can understand why an individual would say that, but we on the commission have to make choices. But to make choices, we're going to need information. So what I'd like to ask, please, is that we calendar this for our January 5 meeting as a review of the community garden fee structure with possible change. I'm not saying that it's going to change. In fact, it could change in any direction. But that we have it on our agenda so people will know this will be the discussion and possible action. And in connection with that, I want to request that we receive, at or before the meeting, I mean, with the agenda for the meeting, a complete report. So we'll have the data we need. A description of the community gardens, how many there are, where they are, and how many people are there. I understand some people have more than one plot. Even while we have a long waiting list, we need to know that. Maybe we need to deal with that. That should be something that the agenda would allow us to deal with if we need to. A specific listing of our costs as applicable to them, as well as our revenue and the history. When were the rates last raised and when were they set? Are there any places where the rates are different from, I understand about 800 to 1,700 plots are at Sepulveda Basin, but others are elsewhere. Maybe they're handled differently. We want to know if they're different. We'll want to know if on some of these sites there's some leasehold we're in that would limit our freedom of action. We'd want to know what our collection times and practices are. I understand that we this year have switched from just an annual payment to allowing people to pay monthly. We want to know that. We'll want to know about how long waiting lists are. We'll want to know what the use of the plots are, generally speaking. Lots of folks are talking about food, but from my own observation, many of the plots, perhaps the majority, are devoted to flowers. Nothing wrong with flowers. I like flowers. I gave up growing tomatoes in my backyard because they were costing me about $1,000 a tomato. The flowers, I just don't ask the question. What do we supply? We want to know where we're supplying the water, where we're supplying rototilling, where we're supplying tools, and where we're not. Maybe that might have an impact on what we charge. If there's any sense about hardship cases, I'd like to know. I mean, the fact that someone is a hardship case affects that someone, but we might not, as a commission, think it should affect everyone. These are kinds of information we'd want. If you could such a report be provided in the time given you, and knowing the holidays are coming?
I will commit to that report.
Okay. Then that would be an agenda item, please. Any other questions for the general manager?